Itwa Jesu onaita diani oseweza Mindaye seya toiva diani achakoa Achazo kupatusko diani achapidura diripa no ditume itwaje suonaita diani oseweza Mindaye toiva diani achakoa tendia nodaitira achazo kupatuso diani achapidura diripa doditume Kanau sirimburidi Harusi Orwezi Uchi no Geta kunena Kudora Paupeni Nemina Matone Jipo Oita Kuna kwake ungafa na nena Aaron kubati ramporofiti apomwe ya iri kufa tenzi usazo tile unyope kwa misibasa itaba sarano kupa farira basarake kasika kumpindura diri pano ditume.
Greetings once again. Toda kuchingamidza izvakare on stewardship, where we talk issues to do with business and money. Wherever you are, we believe that God is taking good care of you and your family and friends. Today I'm honored to sit down with my good elder, Elder Chituku. How are you, my good brother?
I'm very well.
Yes.
Thank you, Elder Mdoni,
yes,
for the invitation. I'm very honored to be here.
Yes, and thank you so much for allowing yourself to come and as we discuss issues to do with our lives in general.
Yeah, the pleasure is mine.
I
think it's important that we spend time discussing these issues. Very practical.
Yes. Now today we have a very interesting topic from our good elder, where we'll be talking about financial literacy. Christians actually have to have financial literacy. Sema Kristu tofundira kuziziwa issues to do with finances, and the good elders will be breaking it down to us. Maybe we'll get right to it. I know you're an actuary.
Yeah.
What is an actuary, in case for some of us who don't understand?
You don't know what an actuary is?
It's a clever accountant.
Oh yes. Yeah. So as you put it, an actuary is a professional,
right.
Very respected professional,
Right.
who typically on most days works in insurance, pensions,
Right.
Economics. Yeah. So our job is really around understanding what's happening in an economy,
Right.
and using that understanding to design financial systems,
Right.
Particularly long-term savings programs and social security.
Right.
Yeah, and investments. That's really our space. We are risk managers by nature.
Right.
So when you see an actuary, you are seeing someone who is very cautious about how they go about their business, who is accountable. So our training requires us to be accountable first at a personal level, right? Because you are supervised by a professional body of similar people who expect you to carry the name actuary with honor.
Okay.
So you have a personal charter that you subscribe to, but you also answer to the public.
Okay.
Yeah. So in a sense, you also are a de facto public officer, because what you do has got impact on generations to come.
Right.
So you have to do it responsibly. You have to do it, cautiously. You have to do it ethically. Yes. Where you don't know as an actuary, you say, I don't know. Because of that, our training then forces us to be very specialized. So within our profession, you then end up with people who say, I only practice in investments because I don't want to lie to people about pensions or insurance. Then you have others who say, I only do pensions. I don't want to lie to people about investments or other aspects.
Okay.
That creates a scenario, a setting where so you have actuaries who are specialists in life insurance, in risk management, in finance and banking, in life insurance, and those are about the 5-6 areas of specialization.
Okay.
Yeah, and they kind of go deep in that particular space, and they become experts.
No, that's good. So you being an elder and being a Christian, when we talk of financial literacy for us as Christians, maybe you can get now down to it.
That's good.
Where are we as Christians? What is the importance of us as Christians to have financial literacy?
Yeah. No, that's good. And it's always an interesting question when people are asked, "Are you financially literate?" Some people have financial education, so they've gone to formal school to learn about finance.
Right.
But they haven't learnt. They've been educated, but they haven't learnt about finances. Right. There's a difference between education and learning. The simplest place to start with financial literacy is to understand your needs, right? Because you become awake to the things you need to do and the things you need to understand if they speak to your needs. So you have to be very real about what your needs are as a person. Now, there's short-term financial literacy, which deals with, now that's for mothers, they budget every month, they write down things and they plan their home, and so that's short-term, where you need to appreciate how much is coming in, how much is going out, and how do you balance the two.
Okay.
You want to look at financial literacy as the relationship between those two.
Right.
How much are you bringing? How much are you going out? And are those two things balanced?
Right.
Now, there is a balance you can create in the short term.
Right.
There's a balance you can create in the medium term. There is a balance you need to create over
the long term.
So the way I will discuss this, I'll discuss it as an actuary.
Right.
So you're now a student actuary
Yes.
for the next 40 minutes. You're a student actuary for the next 40 minutes. Now, it's impossible to get into a financial plan to put yourself as a person who understands finances without understanding the context within which you are operating in. You're a Zimbabwean, in Zimbabwe in 2021. So the first place to start and the first thing to understand is, what does it mean from a financial point of view to be a Zimbabwean in 2021? Let me paint the picture for you.
Right.
I'm going to be as very general as possible.
Right.
So we are in 2021 in Zimbabwe. Now, do you know we've gone through 10 currency reforms since 2000
Yes.
and 2008.
Mm-hmm.
I think if I take this to 2000, for the last 20 years,
Mm-hmm.
we've probably gone through 15 or even 20
Mm-hmm.
currency reforms.
Mm-hmm.
The Zim dollar that we used in 2000, I think at some point it then became agro bills.
Mm-hmm.
From there it became agri checks.
Mm-hmm.
Then it went to travelers checks.
Mm-hmm.
Then it went to Zimbabwe dollars.
Mm-hmm.
Then we went back to the Leonard Tsumba
Yeah.
age. Remember the time
Yes.
when the governor at the time said, bring all the coins you have
Yes.
at home, all the old notes, bring them. They are now legal
Yes.
tender.
Yes.
People went back to that. And it was discontinued 2009, if you remember.
Yes.
Actually, November 2008, there was a decision to suspend a lot of the trading that was happening in the country. Bank accounts were frozen. Our stock market was frozen.
Mm-hmm.
And in 2009, February,
Right.
we dollarized as a country. And, the US dollar became legal tender.
Mm-hmm.
And we continued on that path with the US dollar. Now, if you keep following from there,
Right.
in 2017,
Mm-hmm.
an announcement was made to the effect that there is locally generated US dollar and there's foreign generated US dollar. I don't know if you remember that. It was August 2017.
Right.
So, my dates may be hazy, but
Yeah.
the timeline.
Somewhere there.
Yeah. So I remember there was a big crisis. A lot of people had traveled. I was in the UK at the time. And I remember receiving an email from my bank at the time. It was EcoBank. And they said, the balance you have in your card, you have to apply for pre-authorization to use it. I had traveled before. I'd gone to Washington, D.C. 2014, and I was using my card to transact.
Right.
And even I traveled again prior to 2017.
Mm-hmm.
So the one-to-one relationship was okay. 2017, things changed.
Yeah.
You had to pre-finance with actual hard US dollars cash.
Mm.
So there was a clear distinction there that we've started another phase of reforms. 2018, we then had local nostro and the real nostro. Do you remember that?
Yes.
October 2018, 1
Yes.
October 2018.
Yes.
Then that distinction was made. 2019, February, we introduced the RTGS dollar. You remember that?
Mm-hmm.
RTGS dollar came. It was 1-to-1, but on the next day it became 1-to-1,24, 1 to 2.5.
All right.
Come to May 2019, they then outlawed transactions in the US dollar.
Mm-hmm.
They said all transactions have to be done in the RTGS dollar.
All right.
August, Zim dollar is now the only legal currency. As you continue in that year, they said you can't price anything in any other currency that's not. So remember, people were then pricing this is equal to 2 coupons.
Mm-hmm.
So they also outlawed that, in a number of statutory instruments.
Right.
Then again, they brought back, so no, we're bringing back again.
Mm-hmm.
You can use the US dollar again
Yes.
as legal tender.
Yes.
Why am I saying this?
Right.
I don't want to be the one to pronounce that we have economic turmoil. I'm stating the facts.
Right.
Again, because I'm an actuary, I'm required to back up. A pronouncement I make has to be backed up by facts.
By facts, yeah.
Yeah. So I'm telling you this, that we are in economic turmoil. I think the government is going through a very difficult time trying to come up with measures,
Mm-hmm.
To balance their macroeconomic
Yes,
fundamentals.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
So what is our economic context? Currency instability.
Mm-hmm.
All right. If I tell you what currency we are using
Mm-hmm.
right now, if I just ask you point blank,
Mm-hmm.
without thinking, what currency are we using?
US dollars, US dollars, Zim dollar, ZWL.
So, so we have currency instability.
Right.
We have got high inflation.
Mm-hmm.
It's coming down, but, it's there. We have foreign currency shortages.
Mm-hmm.
We have a problem with just employment, production.
Right.
And COVID-19 also came on board
Right.
and did a thing, it's called a black swan event, right?
Right.
1 in 200 event, 1 in 200 years event. So COVID came and has done what it has done to us. So, you see, unless you understand the times we are in, the amount of time we've lost. I've counted for you from 2000. Do you know you almost remember what you were doing in if I ask you now, do you know you remember what you were doing in 2000?
Yeah.
It doesn't look like it's a long time ago.
Yeah.
But 20 years of economic problems have done to you and to me irreparable damage in terms of how much we should have earned in those 20 years, how much we should have saved in those 20 years, how much we should have accumulated in those 20 years, right? And we're almost starting again, right? So very important for people to understand that this is the context where we are living in. What are the effects or what is the impact of what I've described? So you will know that there's been an outcry from pensioners. You know, pensioners now are getting, I think, $15 on average per month, right? This is after 40, 50 years of work. They're getting $15 a month, right? You can buy 15 loaves of bread and that's it for that month. So you've got pensioners who are not earning enough. You've got businesses that have always had to come back and recapitalize. You've got young people who have not been able to basically, have a decent employment history and some savings. You've got low confidence in banks and savings products and all these things, right? So this is what it has done to us the last 20 years in the economy that we're living in. The question then becomes, okay, so Elder, you've told us all these useless facts, you've told us that we're in serious trouble. The next person is saying, so what? We read about this in the newspaper, you're not telling us anything new, etc., etc. All right. So I think that's the question we're here to answer. Right. So important to understand that economic phase in the background, in the context. Why, and I think this is a very important statement, what is measured, Elder, is properly managed. Okay. What is measured is properly managed. I think one of the first exercises you have to do as a young person or as an individual who's coming up with a personal financial plan is to measure to yourself what your financial barometer is. If there's a financial temperature, right, you need to measure it. I would probably just throw it out there. In the test I give, even at church, at MMC, they know this. I say, how many people in this room can survive for 6 months, same lifestyle, maintain the same lifestyle for 6 months if they lost their job or if they lost whatever source of income they have?
Can you survive 6 months?
Can you survive 6 months on the same lifestyle? Kids going to school, eating cereal, Revita, or porridge, I don't know, whatever it is that you eat in your home. Can you survive for 6 months as you come up with a plan B?
In the same month, you're dead. I want to seek the second month.
In the same month, because akuda se akuenda kuboda mazona akumboda chi mafuta anenge ari ku Warren Park. I say this because I went through this, my elder. I can digress a little bit.
Yes, no, that's fine.
I went through this phase.
That's real.
It's real, where 2007, 8, things were bad in the country. So I was a young man then, just a young husband. So yeah, I used to do cross-border trading. So I used to get on the trucks and buy soap, cooking oil, fuel. Yes.
Chamuka inyama.
And I would come back and I would sell. So I ended up actually having a couple of people, and I don't know, those ladies, things were bad. And I realized at the time, degree, actual, taentora mambo kwa mtawa
unofana nzara uine degree.
Taentora mambo kwa mtawa kwa mrewa huko. I used to go there, get some cows and some goats, come to abattoir, get it, either sell abattoir, but when the price is not favorable, then there was a restaurant I used to go to in town. ndaizongourayisa paabato, take the meat, supply ku restaurant in town. And then I used to do mealie meal as well. Now you know, and I used to bring mealie meal here. There was a safe station in Coventry and I used to
I think that's a challenge. You are challenging someone.
Yeah.
That we need to not just depend on our papers. Eh?
Yeah.
We need to be all over the place.
You have to be all over the place. Yes. It set me back. At a personal level, it set me back because, you know, I couldn't continue with my studies as well as I would have wanted to.
Right.
Because, you know, so I didn't, you know, pursue my studies as much as I wanted to.
Right.
And I'm grateful to my wife that she was a source of comfort at the time.
Right.
You know, after I buruka gonyeti, nekujega mabox, waya chipika pashika pamba, my man oito baba madzoka, bigger good food, oito comfort, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
But it's a lesson I learned at a practical level.
Wow.
That things can go south.
That's good.
And you won't have enough. I don't think I had enough for more than a month. In fact, I didn't. And I had to come up with a plan B. So the starting point, my elder, what's your financial temperature? And it took out time about financial literacy. Yeah. So now, whatever answer you come up with, right? That's a personal issue. You discuss with your wife. Be very honest with your wife. My man,
temperature
machicken hands machicken spragada what mnyama mushroom rukubi fry asi mai mwana munoziva kuti zvikabhenda kubasa uko 1 week chaicho haiperi tichidya nyama panao. So atodii, you need to have that very fair conversation. Go back to the drawing board, start putting things down. What are we spending that we don't need? No, in fact, that we don't want.
Yes.
Right? What are our needs? Right. Very tough conversations, right?
I like the wording, the financial temperature.
Yes. Oganda ku hospital, remember. Chiremba asatanga upa prescription. Antanga measure.
Antanga mbona temperature kuti yakamira sei.
Kana yakakwira unza
nice.
Mboya mugeze tikudzikise temperature, right? So one of the things that you then have to decide and be very clear on. Right. I'll be very honest with you. At some point, I was really under pressure. You know, private schools and so on. But I sat down with my wife. And if we pay the school fees, we clean. I think it's important for kids to go to private school and have the well-rounded, the wholesome development.
Right.
But I think we're going to have to go a notch lower. Because we were going to be running on empty every month. And I'm grateful kuti unongona upadne kuti ukataura nayo anomhanya otsvaga kuti pane kamwe kachikoro kandaona kari very nice, which still meets what we want for our child, and which we can afford. So let's start there, right? And I think this is a very simple measure. Now, let me give you the criteria for success or failure, right? Very controversial, but that's take it from an actuary.
Yeah.
You have to set aside 30, for Zimbabweans, 37% of your income must be aside for you to be resilient the way I'm describing. Yeah. Now, so this is an average measure I've done for Zimbabweans in general.
37%.
Correct. Given the level of income that Zimbabweans are earning, and given the levels of savings that Zimbabweans have, and given the loss that we have suffered, and where we are going, if I look at the average age, you're going to have to put down 37% of what you're earning every month. I'm not necessarily saying from the salary, but if you're going to be doing side hustles, you must make sure that your side hustle brings in a minimum of 37% of what you are earning that you're able to put aside. Yes. So that is a fact. If I'm talking of personal resilience, if you're going to start now, financial temperature, and I kumba elder, tukuendesa mari outside.
Nandozi aizotichengeta mangwana nandozi. Tikaibvisa tikabika chimodo. Toko na kurarama.
You know what I mean? So this is very real. I know there are people who have
That's real.
kumabasa, one of my pension.
Yeah.
So some are already saving. Personally, kubasa kwangu, I think they take 12% of my salary. They put it aside. I pay an extra 7% to NASA. So I'm like on 19% already.
Right.
So I have to do an extra 18% if I'm gonna sum the total for personal resilience. So I think that's the first thing. I'm gonna throw some figure for you, my elder. Triple financial literacy, and I've tried to really break this down into a very simple, practical, tangible conversation.
Right.
Now, do you know that you, my elder, for you to live a good life when you retire, you alone, before I put your wife in, you need about 150,000 US dollars in liquid cash.
Alone.
You.
Not with my wife.
Not with your wife. You're going to need about 150,000 US dollars on the day that you retire. I'm talking of Zimbabwe. That will allow you to live a life of about 500 US dollars a month when you retire.
Okay.
How old are you, my elder?
I'm 37 now.
37. How many years do you have until you're 60?
About
23 years.
23 years.
So if you're going to save $150,000 in the next 23 years, how much should you be putting aside a year? 150,000 by 23, that's about 7,000 a year. Per month, how much? That's 600 a month. US.
That you need to be putting aside.
Now.
As what there is.
we want to.
You are saving $600 US per month. You're putting it aside.
There's a big if, right?
For your retirement.
Yeah, I said if. If you want to live a life of 500 US dollars a month when you retire at age 60,
okay,
you want to be putting aside about 600 for you at your age.
Yeah.
Obviously, someone who's younger than you will need to put aside less.
Less, yeah.
Now, if you're smart, you are able to earn interest on that money, and you can then reduce the amount you set aside. But I'm just, I don't want to be complicated. I'm just putting simple numbers.
Yeah.
Right. So imagine, we're talking of financial literacy, right?
Yeah.
So you are measuring your financial temperature. So number one, I asked, how many months can you go? If you're fired today from your job, how many months can you go on the same lifestyle? That's measure number one. Number two, you need 150,000 US by the time you get to age 60, right? How you spend it is your business. Whether it's in the form of a house or whether when you retire, you buy a house and then you rent out the house. That's besides the point. The point is you need to have an asset of that magnitude that will sustain you. Ochiti, how much do I have now? So you go to your pension plan, you go to your NASA, you do your numbers and say, okay, so how much do I have now? And then you put it here and you say, okay, what's the gap? And what do I need to do to close the gap? Very important conversation you need to have. You see, the problem with young people is that sometimes we think we are always going to be young, right? You know what our problem is, elder? You're 37, but you still feel like you're 20. The thing about age, you age outside, but internally you still feel like the same.
The same person that
you've always been. So it's very difficult for you to think about these things, right? So those are the two things I think you need to really think about. If I say to you, are you literate financially? Do you understand finances? At a personal level, I'm not talking of business or stock markets. No, that's not what I'm talking about. You give me those two numbers. Yes, I am. In a gap year. And I need to close these two gaps. Right. Now, so once you measure those two gaps, what do you do? What are the responses? Right. Now the responses depend on a cycle of a human being, right, which I call the human life cycle. So there is an earning phase, there is an accumulation phase, there is a growth phase, and then there is what you call the relaxation phase. Right?
Okay.
The story of Joseph, my elder, is really what we're talking about here, right? You know the story of Joseph, a very humbling story. Came from a very good family. those misfortunes happened.
Right.
He was sold to the Egyptians, and then he was a slave in Potiphar's house. And along the way, he ended up in jail.
Yeah.
You know, and there was a butler who was in jail, who had a dream, told Joseph, this is a dream. And
Story
things
going on.
happened.
Yeah.
And somewhere along the way, the king had a dream and it troubled him. And the butler said, you know, when I was in jail, there's a guy that I met there who interpreted my dream. So he came, he does the interpretation of the dream. And the story is about there are 7 years of plenty, and there are 7 years of few. And he came up with a plan. What do you do in the 7 years of plenty?
Yes.
So that's the ending phase. What do you do in the 7 years where there isn't much, right? Remember the 37% that I asked you to save. I think Joseph was worse than me. He had higher saving percentage that he demanded from the people. And even then, things got so bad. And you know, this is the reality of life. Things got so bad that you know initially they were selling grain. He was selling grain, and eventually they end up giving up their land. Yeah. And this is a story that has happened to a lot of people. We all know of people and parents who've ended up selling their houses in old age.
Yes.
Vazorwara baba or zvazodiyo nzata
Takutotengesa imba.
kuti baba varapwe or kuti tijike kana takuenda kumusha. So the lessons in that story, very beautiful story. Lessons in that story, they come in very handy as we start, as we continue with this discussion.
Right.
So ending phase, this is where we are, right?
So the Joseph principle of saving is very critical for us as Christians. Really, one right was just now. Financial literacy was actually very, very high.
Now,
because we are even scared of retiring because we have nowhere to go.
Yes. Now, I think it wasn't a coincidence for someone like Joseph because of where he had grown up.
Right.
Now, if you look at that history of his forefathers, so you go back to Abraham, very powerful man. He used to manage his household with so much splendor and excellence, right?
True.
I mean, the guy was so powerful that he fought five kings.
Yes.
And he actually conquered them. I just think he was a great manager.
Right.
You even go to after Abraham, you've got Isaac who came again, master farmer, all sorts of things. He did livestock, he did farming, water management. He was very, even relationship management. He was brilliant at relationship management. You leave that, you go to Isaac's children, Jacob and Esau, where Joseph then comes from. Yeah. And again, you find, even when he goes to Laban's house, still there was, multiplication of wealth, And by the way, multiplication, if you look at nature, if you look at how God sustains nature, that's how God sustains nature. God has created nature in a way that it creates its own future generation, it creates its own savings. So nature gives back to its own, and it continues to sustain itself,
right.
So God is a God of, be fruitful. Once you're fruitful, you multiply. Once you multiply, you replenish. You've got to replenish. And these are the principles that we continue to embody. Yes. That's a wholesome financial plan. You're fruitful, so you work, right? Once you work, you multiply. Remember, I told of the accumulation phase.
Yes, accumulation
you multiply.
phase, yeah.
Once you multiply, and then you maintain, right? You look after it. If you look at what God said to Adam, you've got to look after, and then you replenish, right? So once you replenish, you're going back into that phase where you've saved, you have. You've done your part, and you are enjoying all these years of fruitfulness. You come to a point where you pass on the wisdom, the knowledge to future generations, and that's a good financial plan for a Christian. An excellent template of that is Solomon. So at some point, my elder want to do Solomon's economy.
Yes.
We need to then look at how Solomon took the same principle, be fruitful, multiply, replenish. want to see how he did it. He had a very powerful principle. He didn't like poverty. He was strong in livestock, agriculture, and trade. So relationships, precious metals, ornaments, spices, timber. So Solomon used to trade a lot. And those are the, good elements of a good financial plan, right? Of any individual, right? So we're now going back to our story of how do you respond and how do you react to your financial temperature.
Right.
You've done your assessment of yourself, and so you have an earning phase. At the moment, I have started a movement, which is called the 60-hour movement. It's targeted at young people, because my estimation of the amount of time we've lost from COVID, right, is that we need to increase our hours per week from 40, working hours a week from 40 to 61. I just made it 61 so that it's catchy.
Right.
So it's 60, but 61 so that it's catchy.
Right.
So I've started the 61-hour week movement.
Okay.
Right? From Sunday to Friday.
Right.
Okay. And we've got the energy and we've got to do it, because we've got to end to close the gaps we have identified and to create enough layer so that we put aside something for the future. So that earning phase, my elder, personally, I can talk of my some of the personal reflections I've been making.
All right.
You need to be very careful with your time. Be very careful with your time.
That's number one.
That's number one. Be very careful with your time. I think it's nice to be everywhere and to do everything. But I think it's coming to a point where people hear your voice, there must be an invoice. Very important.
That's powerful.
You can't just...
before you hear my voice, there must be an invoice.
Of course. You can't just live life like a child. You have to grow up. You have to mature. There are things that need to be done. There are kids that need to go to school.
Right.
Families that, your wife needs to, a good home, a comfortable. You need to have your own, your own space. So be at a point where, where people hear your voice, there's an invoice that follows. What am I saying? Your time must generate, right? Be fruitful. When you wake up in the morning, surely, please, the week must not end without an invoice going out.
Yes.
All right?
That's a tweetable statement.
Exactly. It's okay to say. It's a hashtag, isn't it? So we should create a hashtag.
Yes.
When people hear your voice, an invoice must follow.
Must follow.
Yeah, because it's about being serious, right? We can't play around. You know what I mean? It's about creating value.
Right.
It's about creating pipelines of things that we need to do. So, there are problems in healthcare in the country. We all know about healthcare. Yeah. There are problems with payment systems in this country. There are problems with just forex and logistics. All these things, they take a lot of time to navigate because of our banks and what. Just farmers, how they bring their goods across to I think personally, I'm not rich, not by a wide margin. I'm nowhere near being counted as. But I notice the solutions that rich people offer. They realize that these people are struggling with at a funeral. They struggle with water to wash hands. So Nyaradzo comes up with a Bowser, where he puts water and soap, and you pay $50 to hire that Bowser. And he comes, he tows it on his bus. He puts water that he gets from your house, maybe, or from next door. He puts a bit of soap, and you just basically open and you wash your hands, and you pay $50 for it. That's amazing, right? But yeah, so
true.
Number one, so we need to work hard.
Time management.
Yes, time management. You go to work, you do what you do, but I think after you do that, surely you can't put 8 hours making someone rich, and you don't have 2-3 hours for your own wealth, for your own kids. I think that's irresponsible.
Right.
It's unfair to your wife, it's unfair to your kids, it's unfair to your parents, and it's just totally irresponsible. I believe in life, fear and discipline. Munhu ichka. Pauri so zvimwe zvaunenge uchingoita soka inzwa kutya wega kuti handityi here kuti mwana wangu ingotya zvimwe zvinhu so you know my elder inzwa kuvhunduka.
True. When I look at my kids ndorowa nehana.
Exactly.
When I just look at them, I say, hey, I must work hard.
Yes. Inzwa kutya munhu, and kutya ikoko kunokuunza chivindi, chinokuunza kama kakudzikama nekama kapush. Right. And then you've got to discipline yourself. So I think let's work very hard. Let's get involved in productive things, in productive conversations as much as possible. So one thing that I have found to work for me, Elder, is that indotamba Mandara. I'll be very honest with you. I learned kuti guys my age tine nyaya dzinotina kids. Ende ndoona kunge dzinotadhireyo because tokona kupedza 4 hours. Tichitaura nyaya yekuti Messi naRonaldo ndiani anogona.
Kuti makatengani seunge wakaisa dhora.
Wazvona. I found when I speak to Mandara, because of their focus and their experience in life, normally they help me to focus. Wow. And even the way I pitch nyaya dzangu unoza kwangosvika pane munhu mukuru ka unongonzwa unzura sei kungodukupiswa wega so kuti pandasvika panapa ka pakuda kuti nditaure nyaya dzine musoro. So I found that work for me. I like to surround myself with people that are better than me, and that has definitely worked well. I volunteer a lot personally, so I'm sharing some of my personal experiences. Not that that's the best that people should do, but I volunteer a lot because that has opened lots of networks for me, international networks. Because you want to earn US dollars, right? Yes, so that's fine. Now, Elder, tauda usvika pane inonzi accumulation phase. Right. Earning phase, I think mono gova ita zvaunokwanisa, but akumana, the accumulation phase, we have probably missed it. A lot of us. I think the guys who are probably in their 60s now, they had a chance. Wakawana accumulation phase. I know for a fact that in the 80s, my parents were able to take out mortgages and they were able to buy 2-3 properties. And when my parents got better jobs, Zimbabwe man. You remember those days? Some and all that stuff. Now, at our age, I don't think we've had the fortune of accumulating. Right. And this is because of a number of things. Number one, we don't have a debt facilities. So debt is bad in many, many senses. But for accumulating assets, it's a good thing. Okay. When you take a loan to buy a house for mortgage for your kids, or when you take a loan to buy a property for your business.
Not a cell phone.
Not a cell phone, not a car. Those are sustainable ways of doing it. I feel because of lack of employment, lack of those facilities, we've not been able to accumulate our generation, you and me, because we're in the same generation, right? We've not been able to accumulate. I think net wealth for us, when I looked at the National Economic Survey, net wealth for our generation is below 5,000 per head. Very few of us have more than 5 grand that they've accumulated. So it's a car, ex-JAP 3,000, maybe some pension pot, nigga 2,000.
Nigga 2,000.
Yeah, nigga salary, amount kasala bank account. Finish emba 1,000. So very few of us have got more than 5 grand saved up. So we need to start accumulating. So the challenge I have given at my church is to say, gatanga 20 US. Murunetse kasterek. Gatanga
20 US dollars.
Remember, I gave you the challenge of 600 per month. You've got that number in your mind?
Yes. I still have it. Actually, I'm still calculating in my mind.
Or 600, it's now 80,000 bond almost. Yeah. So let's start accumulating. How do we do that? I'll give you a real life example. I've got a friend of mine, and actually, we were having this discussion a few years ago. And he says, I've got a friend who's got a farm just close to, what do you call it, Nyabira. A friend of mine who's got a farm. So, I'm going to buy a cow. with this bonus. I want to buy a cow, and I'll put it at his farm. And
Okay.
I'll contribute a small amount for the,
Ngochengetwa kufudzwa.
So this year, this is a real life story. So this year, he called me to say, that guy that I told you about is coming to pick up money from you. I had some of his money with me. Can you give him X amount of dollars? Because he's shipping my cattle from his farm. He's taking it to my farm because he then got a plot. This is government plots. Very important topic, by the way.
Yeah.
Very controversial, but important. We have to accumulate. So he says he's bringing 9 of my cattle. And I said, 9? And he says, yes, I bought 1. And they've just been multiplying. So now I know he's got... so when he got his farm, he had some goats and some sheep.
Right.
So he's got cattle, he's got goats, he's got sheep. Right. So I want to talk about simple things, practical things that people can do. Whatever the case is, if you're a young person in this country, you have to start accumulating. Get whatever you can get. Apply whatever you can apply. I'm not going to mention, which facilities to use.
Yes.
But I have a piece of land, my elder.
Yes.
You can edit if you want. But I applied for a piece of land and I got a piece of land.
No, we're not going to edit.
Yeah. And I've got cattle there, I've got goats there, I've got maize.
Right.
Because I figured, where am I going to get money to go and buy 20 hectares from?
Yes.
But if my government in this country is saying you're a Zimbabwean, come and apply for a piece of land, I went, I applied, I got it. You know what I mean? Why are we not doing it? So we need to get to that accumulation phase. And we need to accumulate assets, not liabilities.
Yes.
Right? So me and my wife have 1 car. It's a conscious decision we've made. We don't need 2 cars because it's going to cost us. The cars are not going to bring money in. We've got 1 car. It's serving us well. She drops me off to work, drops off the kids, picks up the kids, picks me up from work, takes me home.
Then we go home.
Game over, right? So we need to accumulate. I think I'll offer you to do a write-up of accumulation.
Right.
When you accumulate, those assets will start growing on their own. So you're working, that 37% that you're targeting of your income that you want to put aside, it will come from your work, from your hustles, and the assets will start growing. And the numbers will start adding up. And before you know it, you start accumulating more than 50% of what you're earning, more than 60%. There will come a point where you start accumulating 100% of what you're earning. Wealth keeps growing, but you've got to start accumulating. You have to start accumulating.
This is the accumulation phase.
That's the accumulation phase. Now, for you and I, our earning phase and accumulation phase, they are now like this. There's no distinction. So we are under pressure. We're supposed to go through an earning phase. Yotipaka deposit. Kakanaka. Topina tobata chi asset. Toshanda foot, tonobata chi much asset. Then you then take those assets, you start getting more assets. You're accumulating. Then kana masses haya wanda. They start growing. You're not focusing on just managing them. And they grow and they grow and they grow up to the point where you say, according to Ecclesiastes chapter 11, verse 1. Put your...
Let me just read it for you. Ecclesiastes 11, verse 1. Cast thy bread upon the waters, for thou shalt find it after many days.
And verse 2.
Verse 2. Give a portion to 7, and also to 8, for thou knowest not what evil shall be upon the earth.
This is the wisest man. And give a portion to 7, even to 8.
Up, seeds all over.
So that
une plan B, une plan C.
Exactly. So
61 hours.
61-hour movement. Accumulation phase.
Right.
Earning phase. Teenage credit by earning phase, my elder. Yeah, teenage credit chakanyanya. If you travel, and I think traveling is good because it opens up your mind. Most people our age, these guys are now executives. They're now, running. Because they've gone through the earning phase. By earning phase, I mean you establish your career, you establish your credibility, your reputation, your character as someone who delivers, right? So you earn a name, you earn reputation, you earn character, you earn money. And you get to a point where you're now 40. Well, your focus is now building, building businesses and building systems and processes. That's what I mean by accumulation.
Okay.
Vana Jeff Bezos, the guy from
Yes.
Amazon.
Yes.
You start in your thing, you do your algorithm.
Mhm.
That algorithm starts working for you. So, a lot of my friends, you read about them, Anenga head of Africa for this, Chakati for that, So these guys, earning phase, they're now accumulating.
Mhm.
Networks, they're
Right.
accumulating wealth, they're accumulating board positions,
Mhm.
and things are just coming to you.
Yeah, right.
And Rugunga needs uchikanda in different places.
Mm.
Right. Then those things start growing. Manager, man.
Right.
Yeah. So I think very important. Those two, earning and accumulation. That's where we are.
Mm.
I think we'll find time to talk about growth.
Yes, I'm looking at our time.
Yeah.
Time is always jealous. Maybe as you finish the phases, you could just finish off, wrap it off. Tataura earning,
Yeah.
Tataura accumulation,
Growth.
Maybe you could talk of growth.
Yeah. I talked of growth.
You talked of growth.
Yeah.
And the fourth one, I know there's
Is the relaxation phase.
the relaxation phase.
Timing. The replenishing.
Yes, this is where we can.
This is where we
perhaps
can,
close
So
it.
if you are financially literate, you have to, number one, appreciate. Doesn't matter how passionate you are.
Mhm.
There's no way you're going to work forever at the same energy, at the same level of efficiency. It's not going to work. Proper financial literacy means you then pass on the wisdom and the knowledge to the next generation.
Mhm.
You use what you have accumulated, what you have learned over the years to support your kids,
Yes.
to support future generations, to build wealth to future generations. That's
Right.
now that's sustainable. Now I'll say this man is literate.
Mm.
He knows what he's doing.
Mm.
Yeah. So that retirement phase, very crucial. People underestimate the impact of that phase. I work with pensioners,
Mm.
and I've seen grown men cry, like literally. I'm not talking of
Mm.
as a figure of speech. I'm
Right.
talking of literally grown men crying. Former executives crying to say, look, guys, I'm earning $5 now. 5, because it's 500 bond. I'm earning $5. What do I do with it? So
Nothing.
we need to plan for that, and we need it to be part of our financial plan.
Mm.
Yeah,
Mm.
very important.
Mm. That is very true, my good elder. I'm sure the lessons that we are having here, some people are paying to hear, these wise words.
There will be no invoice for
There
you.
will be no invoice. But we are really grateful, elder. Maybe just in a minute, just to summarize what we've been discussing, key points to take home.
Yeah.
Mm.
I think, thank you.
Yes.
Very important. We are living in difficult times as a country, not only as a country, Zim, but as a global village. Things are really difficult.
Mm-hmm.
So let's understand the need to be very cautious with our finances,
Mm-hmm.
and to learn to have a long-term plan, number one. Number two, I think when you get home, sit down with your spouse, with your partner, calculate your financial temperature.
Mm-hmm.
I made it out as 37%. You must be accumulating every month 37% of your main income. You must be putting it aside to avoid problems in future. I gave you a number, $150,000 that you need by the time you reach age 60 to have a comfortable retirement.
Mm-hmm.
Once you understand these things, you need to then develop responses. And number one is earning. You need to make sure that you're earning enough, and you need to do enough. You need to do a lot to make sure that you address this problem. Number two, you need to accumulate assets, right? Number three, you need to make sure those assets will grow on themselves, so that number four, when you get to the retirement replenishment phase, you actually go into wealth building and sustaining a generation. So I think for me, that's financial literacy.
Mm.
Yeah.
Thank you so much, elder. The church has a lot of wise people amongst us.
Thank you.
And
I'm humbled.
if we are not asking for advice, then we are doomed for failure. I would just ask you to pray for us, elder, with all these things that you have discussed. They are so touching. They are so real. Most of the times we talk of a fake life, really,
Yes.
but we're not real sometimes.
Absolutely.
And with these notes, I'm sure they will be helping somebody. I've been helped.
Wonderful.
And we'll be making changes to see our financial temperature, where we are as a family. Maybe you can pray for us.
Let's pray. Lord, we thank you for this wonderful discussion.
Mm-hmm.
We thank you, Father, because you always think about us.
Mm-hmm.
You have taught us many things. Your word is very clear.
Mm-hmm.
You love us, Father, to live life in abundance. You do not want us to worry about things that you have provided answers for. In this topic, Father, of topic on financial literacy, open our minds, give us revelation on what are the wise things that we should do for ourselves, for our children, for our parents, so that we enjoy a life that does not, is not captured by worry, by lack, by poverty, but indeed is a blessing to our communities, to our friends, to our place of work. And Father, may you continue to enlarge our territories, grant us good health, and may we find favor with men and with you. We pray in the name of Jesus. Amen.
Amen. Thank you so much. May God bless you. May God keep you. And until again, we meet next week. God bless. Thank you.
Usiku unakuja, batabasarenu, batari zipozuka, bata usiku, bata pamangwanani, bata masikati, usiku unakuja, ridoperari, usiku unakuja, batabasarenu, iyo muchazorora, gatibateri, zino iriponguva, batane masimba, usiku unakuja, bazarapera, usiku unakuja, batabasarenu, engaro rakatuka, ebamaneru, bata irikupera, uwayo yebasa, usiku unakuja, bazarapera, usiku unakuja, bazarenu, engaro rakatuka, ebamaneru, bata irikupera, uwayo yebasa, usiku unakuja, bazarapera, usiku unakuja, bazarapera, usiku unakuja.